Like so many people, I am a fan of the extraordinary woman that is Gena Rowlands. I thought so often about Gena during the making of this film, an artist who has taught me so much and who is such a guide to me. I've always wanted to be in an artistic relationship that could reach for what artists like John and Gena created together. The first person I wanted to show this film to was Gena Rowlands.
I would say the depth of your depression. It was really, I felt there's nothing that you wanted to do more than to get out of it.
Yeah.
And you were in a jail. You were padlocked into a jail that you could not get out of.
After we showed them the film, Brad and I met with Gena and her husband Robert in the same house, in fact, that she and John shot so many of their films.
When we read about the way you would make films, it was the autonomy. It was a homegrown project. You guys were doing it together. You guys are free from any outside influence. But it had to be really incredible at that time to jump into a project.
Yeah, it was going from live TV, which is so structured, and then having theater, which has to be so structured, and then to do that,
meaning
and
there's
have
a
that
script,
freedom.
But
to have that freedom at that time.
It was exciting. A lot of our actor friends came over, and they started improvising scenes, and they said, well, you ought to make that into film, John. And John said, if I had $1 million, I would do it in a second. And the guy said, well, why did people can send in money? You know?
oh my God.
There's people that say, and do you know what people did? That became Shadows, which was John's first directing. And, you know, it's amazing what people will do for very little when they know there's no money there and that you're doing it just because you love it. And it was wonderful.
But did you improvise to write the films?
No.
Oh, you didn't? Oh, I always thought you workshopped them or something.
No.
He just went off and wrote.
Well,
After that, he would...
24 hours a day.
Is that right?
He was a workaholic.
Tell him what John told you when you were going to shoot Woman.
It was the greatest acting lesson I ever had. If you remember Woman Under the Influence, it's a woman who loves her husband too much. I said, John, honest to God, I don't really understand this. I don't know how to play it. I mean, if she loves him so much, why would she ever go with anybody else sexually and bring him into their home? And he said, Jenna, I wrote the script, right? I said, yeah. And he said, and when I wrote it with you in mind. I said, yeah. And he said, and you read it? And you said that you liked it? I said, yeah. And you wanted to do it? I said, yeah. He said, then do it. Once it's your part, it doesn't make any difference what the director thinks, or the producer, or the other actors, or your mother, or your husband, whatever. It's yours. Only you can make it be that. Because it's yours.
That's fantastic.
And I thought that was the greatest acting thing anyone could ever have said to them. And that's exactly how I feel about it, and always have since.
Should we get rid of these cameras and go have dinner and hang out?
Sure. Why not?
I smell fish. What we hope comes across, the interesting thing is that when you first meet them, you assume certain things about them. You assume you know them. You assume that he's
An asshole.
He's an asshole and a drunk, and he's quite irritated with her, and he's focused on himself and his writing, and you assume that she's
an asshole.
An asshole focused on her, the way she looks and doesn't like people and is above it all and is, and then you kind of slowly discover that they, that there's a reason they're avoiding each other and that there's a reason they have a lot of anger and they've been sitting on something for a very, very long time. And they both haven't ever been at a point where they've addressed it.
All right, so we're looking out here to see a lady, crazy lady with a hairdryer.
That's what kills me.
It has been a really interesting process in the writing of it many years ago and in thinking about what it needed to be. During the process of the film, I thought it was going to be lighter because I thought that that's what it needed. I thought it needed to have more humor to pull people through it.
Okay, reset, cut, and
Okay,
reset.
cut.
I didn't realize how much pain was in it, and I didn't realize how much I wanted to say about pain and grief. I thought that that was an underlined issue and that the story would have these wonderful colors. But in truth, it is very much about pulling through and coming to terms with and understanding grief.
We're searching for the characters, Roland and Vanessa. They're searching to get over the hill of grief. Roland specifically is searching to reconnect because he's losing her. And there's great frustration in that. There's great empathy in where she's at. And we discovered this thing, which are the neighbors next door, and it's a device, or at least momentarily, that starts to feel like they're rebuilding some semblance of who they were.
It could seem simply titillating or erotic, but in fact, I think you realize that it's coming. The reason for it is actually coming from a very disturbing place, and it's and our friendship with them is very their perception of it and what they think is happening is very different than what we know is happening, and it's actually not very nice what ends up happening, what I end up doing to them.
No, it's rather ugly.
And what we did in that room, those scenes where I'm with Melanie playing my wife, it was almost like we were, because the frame is always the same through the hole. It's kind of wide shot, but you can play if you come closer to the hole, to the camera, it's more like a close-up. Then when you go away, you see the full body. So we played with that. Angie wanted us to play with that.
Although we had a wall removed for those scenes, we then put back in sort of a screen so that they could imagine that a wall was there where the camera was. So our camera was actually shooting through a surface rather than having it exposed with crew standing behind it.
What was very interesting and surprising for me is that she would let the camera roll for maybe 10 minutes and leave us in the room, and we would do improvisation that would happen before the scene that was written in the script. And then after we did the scene, she would let the camera roll for 5 more minutes. So it was, for us, for Melanie and I, it was like really living our life.
I wanted it to feel like a play. I wanted us to be able to move anywhere in the room and shoot and not be constantly lit and some kind of machine. There was something about the place and time and also the heaviness of the subject matter that whoever was going to shoot it had to take us out of what we know and take us to a different time.
But the idea behind is completely simple, just to keep the beauty of natural light alive.
The system is very unique. It's something that he's been developing. A lot of this stuff is prototypes and is all about bouncing light and reflecting it in, so you get a further distance.
They love the freedom they gain. You know, to have a free space, to be able to move in the room where you want. You never lose the quality of light.
We worked together 10 years ago. We weren't married, and we were just getting to know each other, and life was just so different then. Now we have 10 years of history, many years of our love affair and our fights. And so it all now feeds into something else.
Look at me. Look at me. Why? Why? No. Because you...
Now, if we could swing around here, this is so from here to here, if you could almost pull us.
No, it's because you want them. No, because you want what they don't have, because you're jealous.
We discussed it early on that we wanted to make a certain type of film.
Those films from the 70s, from late 60s and 70s, especially the European films. The style was important, the way of shooting was important, but the subject matters were often very, very poignant. And so much about life and the strain and the reaching for each other and the questioning of self and these are the great human themes.
Mais avec elle, j'ai découvert quelque chose, c'est que si on aime vraiment quelqu'un, on veut plus pour l'autre que pour soi-même. Vous comprenez ça?
C'est très audacieux de sa part d'avoir tenté cette aventure plus expérimentale, plus marginale même, dans laquelle elle dit quelque chose, sans doute, de ce qui traîne dans sa tête, de ce qui traîne dans son cœur, dans la relation amoureuse. Et je pense que ce sera sans doute une grande surprise pour le public américain, mais aussi pour le public européen, de voir à quel point cette femme est pleine de doutes, pleine de fragilité, et en même temps armée de ce courage, de cette force de vivre dont elle est pleine. Elle a écrit une histoire que, personnellement, je trouve assez incroyable.
Cut. I was so happy that he was willing to try this. And then, I think a few weeks in, we thought it was a really bad idea. And then a few weeks later, I think we realized it was actually a really good thing to do.
It was just a family affair. We had our kids there.
I was free to create and play and be a little irreverent and a little inappropriate and a little too loud and play with other actors and come up with things and not have to fit it into some kind of thing that needed to be sold a certain way. And Brad wanted that too. We thought going into this it might be crazy, but let's get a little crazy. Got to get a little crazy. Let's get a little free, and maybe it'll be a disaster, but we should mess it up every once in a while, and it's okay if we fall on our face, but let's do what we like.
Wait, can we blur things and beep things out?
I love films that make you walk away thinking and still trying to put the pieces together, and something that will be slightly different for different people as they see it, and different things will resonate and some things won't, and you can leave some things open because that's life.